Where do our loyalties lie?
So why Ahmadiyyat?
They're not fanatics, they're sick.
To make a better world for everyone.
With real stories,
There's nothing that I've done differently. I've just been me.
real issues,
Is it possible to be loyal to two different countries?
real views. This is Real Talk Canada.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk Canada. My name is Umair Khan, and we're here in Beth Noor Mosque in Calgary, Canada. The topic we will be discussing today are challenges to families. Many people want a successful and happy family, but what are some of the reasons that they are not able to attain that goal? Is it because of anger problems, miscommunication, or bad behavior? So we will be talking about this and many other things. I have with us our guest panelists and our studio audience today. I'd like to start by introducing our guest panelists. I have here with me Dr. Umair Khan, who is a psychiatrist working at the local hospital in Calgary, and he has a lot of experience dealing with many family issues. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Umair Khan.
Wa alaikum assalam.
And welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Next we have with us Mr. Sultan Mahmood. Mr. Sultan Mahmood used to work as an engineer overseas before immigrating to Canada in 1992. Currently, he works as a certified immigrations consultant. Mr. Sultan Mahmood, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
And next to him, we have Mr. Mohammed Emry. Mr. Mohammed Emry was elected to his sixth term as a member of the Legislative Assembly for Calgary East on April 23, 2012. He was appointed to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, and on May 28, 2012, he was appointed chair of the Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future. Mr. Emry, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks for having me.
Now, before we get into this discussion on this topic, we wanted to find out what the public's opinion is about the challenges that families face. So let's listen in to the word on the street.
Assalamu alaikum. Donna Hedges said, having a place to go is called home. Having somebody to love is called a family. Having both is a blessing. Today, many families are struggling to maintain a stable family unit. They're struggling in keeping long, healthy, happy relationships, not only with their spouse, but also with their children, parents, and among siblings. There's numerous accounts of domestic violence in Canada, some that are reported and numerous that aren't. A study done by Statistics Canada in 2013 revealed 99,000 victims of spousal and domestic violence in Canada. The same study also showed that 18,710 of these victims were children and youth aged 17 and under. That's a staggering statistic. In a recent study done by the daily newspaper for Statistics Canada, it showed that children whose parents are divorced tend to show high levels of depression and higher levels of antisocial behavior. That same study also showed 40% of marriages in Canada are ending in a divorce. The average age, 40 years old. There's many reasons as to why couples might want to divorce. We've narrowed it down to 6 main points. Those are the lack of communication, incompatibility or intolerance, family interference, financial turmoil, the addiction to alcohol or drugs, and of course, unfaithfulness. So are the values of families changing, or do we simply not have any left? Let's go out and find the word on the street.
I think family values are taking a backseat to parents working so they can afford the 2 cars and the big house, and it's very uncommon to find stay-at-home parents anymore.
It's an absolute concern, and I think really 100 years ago we didn't have the same access to the same kind of things that we do today. Information is immediate, and who's producing that information, I think, has a lot of sway on how things are run today.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the program. So when we talk about this topic of the difficulties and challenges that families face, one of the things we'd like to do is, first of all, identify what a happy and successful family is. What are their habits? What are their, the aspects that stick out from a happy and successful family? So starting off with this question, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Safir Khan, in your opinion, what are some of those things that you see in a happy and successful family?
A happy and peaceful family, you can see them that they have greater tolerance for each other, tolerance for the difference of opinion, respect for each other, and the members are available emotionally and physically in cases of crisis for each other. They avoid criticizing negatively each other, and they feel that they are in peace and they are in safe environment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Mahmood, we know that you've had a lot of experience in doing a lot of counseling for many families. What, in your opinion, are some of the things that stick out in a very happy and successful family?
The happy and successful families don't come to me to start with.
Okay.
So when I have to do counseling, the counseling has to be done to the families who have some
difficulties
family issues.
Okay.
But I would say that being a Muslim, I would say that Islam is a complete code of life, and it gives directions for each and every aspect of life. It does give directions to the parents, gives direction to the children, and gives the rights and obligations.
Okay.
So I would say that if all the members of a family they follow the true teachings of Islam, it will result into a very happy and satisfied family.
So in your view, Islam has a big role in successful and happy families?
I think Islam plays a big role, and it does give very clear instructions to each and every individual in a family unit. So if we follow those instructions, then of course we can have a very satisfied and happy family.
Mr. Emry, in your opinion, what are some of the things that have stuck out to you for a happy and successful family?
Well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very, very much for having me here tonight, and thank you very much for having these real talks, and thank you for opening this place to be more than the traditional mosque as we know the mosques for prayers and worshiping. This is becoming a very a place of learning and a place of knowledge, and thank you very much for doing this. To go back to our subject here, I think the family is a very, very important and basic institution of any society. A happy family depends on the way that families feel towards each other, the way how the caring about each other, the support they give each other in the times of need. Unfortunately, things are changing. Usually the family unit is used to be made of a mother and a father and maybe 4 or 3 different children. Now these things are changing. I'm sure we will be talking about that in the program.
Exactly. We'll be coming to some of those problems and issues that families are facing today. Now we have our studio audience here with us, and I wanted to start off with what some of our audience members think about this issue and some of the difficulties that a lot of families are facing here in Canada. So Basil, did you want to add to that?
Well, first of all, I must say that I was very blessed that within the society we see a lot of families break down and children maybe 2 years old and they don't realize what's going on in their family from that age. But by the grace of God, my family stayed together very strongly, and that helped me a lot pass through my adolescent years. Now, alhamdulillah, coming into the 20s, you realize how thankful you are. But I did see in my school the storyline of some of the students that were studying with me. You would see through their habits, you would see how they would talk about their parents and how they interacted with their parents, that their life was not headed in the right way. And that was very sad for me to see that, but also be grateful because my parents kept everything together and there was trust. everyone could trust each other. You could talk to your parents about an issue. So that's
So you had a very, I imagine you had a very open relationship with your parents, and that's one of the big issues that a lot of kids sometimes are a bit shy to communicate some of their issues and problems with their parents. Anyone else from the audience? If we could just get the mic right here.
So I 100% agree with the definition that is given by the panelists, how a happy family should look like and what are the characteristics of the family. And a lot of times we see these characteristics in a lot of families, but then all of a sudden we see the family breaks down. So definitely there has been some rift that of course grows over the time. So I think probably Dr. Khan can answer this question better. What are the early symptoms what one should be careful about, and what should be looking within his own family to see if that kind of friction is starting, and what would be the early stages where it can be repaired and should be repaired to save the family?
Dr. Khan?
I think this is a good question. Thank you. The early symptoms you can identify is the lack of communication. One factor I have noticed is the passive aggressive behavior. I'll define what passive aggressive behavior is. It's kind of when somebody has differences or they have some conflict, instead of communication, instead of building communication and explaining their viewpoint to each other and trying to convince each other in a positive way, they shut down the communication, they stop talking to each other. For example, in many families we have noticed that one of the family member will refuse to eat. Oh, I'll take it later, I'm not hungry. So they will not talk. And when somebody asks them, is there a problem? No, I'm fine, you just enjoy your life. So these are the early symptoms, and it is not surprise for us to see down the road big problems in those families. And there are more other symptoms, and as we will continue discussing this issue, we will discuss those issues as well.
Mr. Emry, in your experiences, what have you found that many families, some of the issues that they come across?
Well, I do agree with Dr. Safir Khan. I'm not a psychiatrist, but in my job as a politician, I deal with a lot of family issues in my constituency, and as you know, I represent a very diverse constituency. In my area, we have over 100 different languages and of course cultures and faiths and everything. So you know, communication is key. As Dr. Khan mentioned, that when this communication comes to a halt, okay, then the problems start. But if you talk about it, and usually when I'm dealing with someone, I usually say, and especially in our traditions and cultures, I believe that the head of the family has a responsibility to make sure that the rest of the family is managed properly, because you are there to manage the household. You are there to watch if there is any problem. If you detect any symptoms, okay, you must be there to deal with it, and deal with it in a proper way. And if the head of the family or the head of the household is not able to deal with it, I think we have help such as Dr. Khan. I think we should seek the help that we really need.
Okay, that's a very interesting point. I would think that though it's best to try to avoid to even come to that point, right? So it'd probably be best to deal with a lot of these problems at home. Mr. Mahmood, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about things like anger and you know, bad behavior within families? How much of these bad habits or characteristics have an effect on the family unit?
Any bad habit is definitely going to have a disaster effect on the family. But having said that, we must look back that what are the causes for having unless it's a psychological problem or the person has to go and see a psychiatrist. But if it's a normal family and these problems come in. So, I will divide this into two parts, two categories. One are those families who immigrate to Canada from elsewhere, and the others are the families who already live here. Now, the issues with the families who immigrate here, they are different, and the issues with the families who have been here, they are different. So, I will talk about the families who immigrate here. Now, when they come here, they have a lot of challenges. They have financial challenges, they may not get a job, they have integration issues, they may not have good communication skills to go and look for a job or even mix with the people. The kids, if they are grown up, maybe 10, 12 years or 18, 19 years, they may have issues with their peers in the schools. Now, if we realize these, if the families realize these, that these are the problems, and then they can have a strategy to overcome them. Now, I can tell you, I am as you introduced me, I do the immigration work. Other than my only professional work, when I do refugee cases as well. So, when these families come to me and they want my help in the refugee cases, the first thing I tell them, without going into my professional thing, I tell them that you are come here now, you are going to face a lot of challenges, you are going to have a lot of difficulties, and you must prepare yourself mentally. Even if you have your family here, for example, you have your brother here, and you will have a lot of expectations from your brother, and that brother may not be able to meet your expectations. Not that he doesn't like you, not that he doesn't love you, but his life is so busy, and he is so busy in doing his day-to-day chores and earning his livelihood and looking after his family, he may not be able to give that time. And I tell you, I'm doing this work since almost 1999. Invariably, those families, because they develop this relationship with me, other than the professional relationship, they come back and tell me that yes, you are right, we are facing problem.
I wanted to turn to the audience. In their experiences from meeting your coworkers, many of the students you have in your classes, what are some of the issues that you have noticed that are very consistent within family issues and family problems?
One of the things that I observe in the community is the issue of forced marriages, because if it is not based on right foundations, then obviously we'll have those other issues that the panelists are touching on. So just wanted to ask the panelists if they can highlight or guide us of how to select our spouse, and what advice would you give the parents while selecting their kid's spouse?
Sometimes in certain cultural backgrounds, young couples are kind of pressured or even forced sometimes to marry. So I think
this is I would believe, in my own views, it's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
It's a huge mistake to try to do that in a culture and in a society where a freedom of a choice, freedom of expression, freedom of choice is so prevalent. And if we're going to force these traditions that have been practiced hundreds of years ago, I think that will end in divorces and in trouble through the marriage life, and it will affect the whole family.
Yeah.
I'll just add here, in my opening statement I said that our religion, Islam, gives us complete code of life, and as far as I know, there is no room for forced marriages in Islam. Right. The main challenge, I think, is that if you're talking about Muslims, then we are mixing culture into our religion, and we are not trying to follow the religion to its letter and spirit, and we are trying to mix culture. In Islam, there is no room for forced marriages.
Exactly. If the Holy Quran is saying things like La ikraha fi din, that there is no compulsion in religion, we can't imagine that Islam as a religion is encouraging forced marriages.
But there's also a tradition of Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he once there was a couple, their parents had decided that they will get married, and then the to-be husband said that he wanted to be his wife. And when this matter went to Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said yes, he's allowed to see his to be wife. But that girl's parents, they were not agreeing, and the girl just came out. She said, if Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that, then who are you to stop me? So this is the kind of freedom and this is the kind of relaxation Islam gives us. And looking at this, of course there's no room for forced marriages, and that's definitely a big problem.
In other words, Islam is making our lives easier, but we sometimes bring in cultural things and make people's lives more difficult. I wanted to talk a little bit about divorce. In Alberta, the divorce rate is 56%. In your opinion and your experiences dealing with different people in different families, what do you think are some of those reasons that divorces are happening?
Lack of tolerance, not respecting each other, and not assuming responsibility. Some men, they are just staying home and not really participating in the job, in the finances, and for the kids, all those things. And again, anger is lack of tolerance, anger.
So things like expectations, bad habits like anger, being intolerant with each other, these are all causing a lot of these problems.
Yeah, these are, and then if you add on it alcohol, drugs, they are again in our society where we live, we see around us a lot of alcohol. It's a huge problem. Then we see like other psychological problems. People who don't identify depression or other psychological problems, they become an issue.
Okay. Bilal?
Okay, so what I wanted to ask, moving forward to Sultan Sahib and Emry, immigrants, when they move to Canada, sometimes one household income is just not enough to make ends meet. And most of the times we see that the husband and the wife end up working. So how have you seen this as a solution or as a problem to make the problem of divorces and family issues worse?
First of all, I will say that if people learn to live within their means, they can live within their means. When people come here and they do not have work permit, they have no job, they are on social assistance, and it's so meager, it's so small that they still live within that.
Right.
I think for a couple it's like $600 or $700 maybe. I don't have the exact figure in my mind, but for some kids it may be $700-800. They have to rent a place, they have to eat food, they have to do everything. But now when they start living here and then they look around, they want to have a new car, brand new car, they want to have their own house, not a small one, it should be a big house. They want to have every luxury of the life. So if we learn to live within our means, this issue should not arise. Having said that, it does not mean that if there is a need for the other partner, wife, to work, yes, they can do that. But they can work around in a way that if she works for 4 hours, if that's enough income, then she should work for 4 hours or maybe 5 hours or 6 hours. It's not necessary that husband is working for 7 days, 10 to 12 hours, and wife is working for 7 days, 8 to 10 hours or 6 to 10 hours. So we need to learn to live within our means. But if there is a need, yes, they can work.
Mr. Emry, I wanted to, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you mentioned earlier that the divorce rate is 56%, and that's from the, I don't know if this number is, how accurate this number is, but however, the 56...
He's not going to agree, he's a politician.
The 56% is from the total population of Albertans, is not from the multicultural communities, I hope. I think in addition to what my honorable colleagues have mentioned, I'd say the financial situations are a main catalyst in causing divorce. And what Mr. Mahmood said, that learning and trying hard to live within our means, especially when we have just arrived here. Okay, instead of I know every immigrant who comes here, in the back of his mind or right in front of him, he'd say, I'm going to Canada, I'm immigrating, I'm going to be rich. It doesn't happen that fast. It really doesn't happen that fast. So the financial situation is a main and a big player in this. When they and when people try not to live within their means and try to live like somebody else, but you don't have the same resources that the other person have. So I think this is what Mr. Mahmood said, living within our means is the key.
Can I add
go ahead.
something?
Sure.
Yeah. This is very interesting. I actually thought about it, that because I see people came, I saw people in the ER, and they wanted to die, they wanted to kill themselves. And what's the issue? That he lost his immigration case. So for him to get his immigration approved and to get like his residential status legalized, this is the whole issue. This is his world. If this is done, I'll be happy. So then I saw people at little higher stage. They were immigrated, they had the immigration, they were actually citizens. So they overdosed, they attempted to kill themselves. So what's your problem? Financial problems. I have so much debts, and I have seen those people, they cut their wrist and they came to brought to the ER. And so their financial debts. So then somehow their problem was addressed and resolved. Then I saw some, like one after the other. So people wanted that their dream is having a beautiful, good house, having 3-4 kids, having a family. Because I have seen all those people. Some people want to die because they have no family. So they say that, what's the use of having this life? At the end, I saw a rich woman who has a wealthy husband. She was wearing like diamond rings. You name it, and she can have access to that facility. Lot of cash in the bank, and she really wanted to die. The reason was that the husband was traveling most of the time due to his business or whatever. Then I thought, other than like faith or the religious factor, I just looked at the worldly matters, that what's one factor, what is most important for somebody's life. And my answer was, after I thought actually about it for 5 months, and one answer, and I still like, I think this is the right answer because I couldn't challenge it: relationship. If you have one good relationship, that will bring a lot of pleasure in your life.
Thank you.
I think one more thing about this. If there is an Arabic proverb, it says "Al-qana'a kanzun la yafna." That means satisfaction is a treasure that will never go away. If you're really satisfied with yourself, satisfied with what you're doing, satisfied with your family, satisfied with your income, and living within the parameters of these things that I have mentioned, I think you'll be happy, and that will prevent a lot of the problems that we just talked about.
Another very interesting thing that God talks about in the Holy Quran about finding that peace and satisfaction is Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, that it is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace. The next thing that we wanted to talk about a little bit is that sometimes when a lot of families and parents come from a different country as immigrants and they come into Canada, one of the difficulties that parents face is that the father is put in a position where he has to work very hard in trying to make a living and make some kind of income for his family. And many times what happens is that kids are being raised by the messages they see on television or media or what they learn from their friends, and they're not getting that valuable message from a role model like their father. So Dr. Khan, I wanted to start with you, what you feel about this issue.
The lack of absent father, I mean physically and emotionally, or similarly in case of mother, it's a very harmful, it causes harmful effect on kids. And though it's not being felt at that time because children, they don't feel it, but down the road, when they grow up, they complain about it and they mention that when I was in crisis, my parents were not available either physically or emotionally. So yeah, it's the responsibility of the father to work hard and to support his family, but still we have to remember that we have to keep some few hours. Even I say sometimes that even 1 hour, it's more than enough. If they can have that quality time with kids. And sometimes I tell people that even if you put aside 1 hour or if 30 minutes, if you say on a daily basis, but during that time, they should not be on their phone, they should not receive any phone call, they should not be attending TV or talking to other. That must be just one-to-one time. So this has great importance, and it causes, if they can spend time with their kids, quality time. No, not during that time they should criticize or asking, what happened in your exam? So it should be just positive to listen to them and to play something. It has a huge impact.
So don't use that time to start asking, did you do your homework, or did you clean your room, or
it's a friendly time.
Have a constructive and light chat with your children. Mr. Emry, I wanted to ask you, I was interested in finding out that you mentioned earlier that you had immigrated and settled in Canada. What was your experience like in settling in a new culture, in a new country, and being able to balance that time with finding a job and also raising a family?
I mean, this is a very difficult situation for every immigrant that leaves his or her homeland to come to a different country. When you arrive in a different country, arrive into everything is new to you. Everything is foreign. As I said earlier, the language, the culture, the customs, the habits, the work ethics, everything is. And let's not forget that each and every one of us immigrants has two responsibilities. The responsibility to build himself and his family here, and also the responsibility of his family and the parents and the country that he left behind. So how is he going to balance, and how he's going to look after both of these? By, of course, working hard. You work hard because I mean, let's face it, life is tough. It's really tough. And Dr. Khan mentioned that you have a lot of expenses that we're not used to when we were in our own countries. We lived in our own homes, we lived with our families. Here we have to rent our own homes or buy our own homes. We need a car, we need a bus pass, we need kids have to go to school, they need lunches every day, they things that we did not really expect or we did not really think about. And as Mr. Mahmood said, like when he's preparing his immigrants to settle in a new country, he prepares them for these things, that you're going to have to see something and do something that you're not used to. So this way, it's unfortunate, but it's happening. It's happening that the father has to work long hours. And if they have families, of course, we come from very conservative societies that usually the wife and the mother takes the job of a mother raising the kids. So then they miss this quality time with their fathers. And that's a problem. Yes, they might not, as Dr. Khan said, they might not feel it right now, but they will think about it in the future. And usually when they think about it in the future, when they're dealing with their own kids. But at that time, I think they should remember, again, they have to have some little responsibility. They should remember, look, what really is available to me now as a person who were either born and raised in this country wasn't available for my father, when he came here.
Mr. Mahmood?
I think these challenges are there and they're real. There's no question about it. But most of us lack the ability of time management. Even if a person works 12 hours, let's say, and 12 hours, the figure I'm saying is that those who drive cab, their shift is for 12 hours,
Okay.
So even if they work for 12 hours, they can manage some time out. I know it will be hard for the person. He's worked for 12 hours, he's tired, wants to go to bed, and is to get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then go for the work. But if that person manages some time, as Dr. Sahab has said, then even half an hour, that will be good enough. And then when you have to be there for your children, for your wife, then forget about your job. I'm saying under the circumstances when you really need it, badly need it. There's a parent teachers meeting. You must find time to go. You can perhaps work another 2 hours at a later time. And if your child is sick, give time to your child. So I think it's more of a problem of time management. And I'll again come back to the same thing. It's a problem of not trying to live within your means.
Trying to make that extra dollar.
Trying to make an extra dollar so that you can move from 2-bedroom to 3-bedroom, or maybe from 2002 Civic car, which I drive now, maybe to 2014 car.
I also feel that especially when parents immigrate here, it's difficult, and it's not fathers don't really have much of an option, and I feel that it's also a responsibility on the parts of their kids to recognize that it's a difficult time for their parents, and take that responsibility of helping around the house. So I wanted to ask before we get to the audience about that, Mubashir, did you want to also add to something?
Yeah, I just wanted to narrate an incident here that I heard from our previous missionary in charge, Naseem Mehdi Sahib. And that is something that really moved me that particular day. And he narrated that in one of these families where father was working day and night, and he was, trying to make the ends meet. His son asked him one day, "Dad, how much money do you make in an hour?" So he answered about $20. The kid kept quiet, and after a few days, kid stopped his dad when he was going out to work, and he said, "Here is $20. So father was kind of surprised. He asked him, "Why are you giving me these $20? He said, "I've been saving it for so many days. So today I have $20 that I can give you, so you can spend this 1 hour with me instead of going to work." So that shows, I agree that kids sometimes don't feel, but kids a lot of times feel also, even the younger ones actually. So from that day onwards, it comes to Mr. Mahmood very rightfully mentioned that time management is a problem. And, instead of driving 12 hours, the cab, if somebody drives, we can drive 11 and a half hours or 11 hours. One thing that I see that really makes a difference, at least in my experience, is have one meal with your family. No matter, what I do, I try to have my dinner with my family. Doctor told me I need to lose weight, but you know what? I end up eating more sitting with the kids. But no matter where I am, I try my best to be at home for the dinner, because that's the time when all the kids and wife and everybody is sitting on the table. You can have little conversation. That's the time when you do not talk about other things. You're having nice meal and enjoying your time with them.
And don't lecture them.
No, you don't lecture them. You enjoy your meal at that time, and you talk to them, and have good time.
I think one of the easiest ways is let the mothers do that part, and obviously it's really nice for the fathers to come home, and I think a lot of kids look forward to seeing their fathers, especially spending the whole day without them, and I see that many times whenever a father comes into the house. Kids are waiting to just grab their legs and spend time with them. Anyone else from the audience, if they wanted to add anything to this?
In my past jobs, I had an opportunity to work with youth and to get their stories about their lives. And one of the things that came up regularly was the absence of parents. And I noticed a trend that these youth would, you know, the father is not there and sometimes the mother is not there. They would find other channels to have that same emotional support if they can get it. And some of it was through, you know, media, social media and all that, and friends, or even idolizing, you know, sports figures. But with all that media in place, there's a certain value that they have in place, and they find that that's what works for them. So they bring that back home, and when they do get an opportunity to speak with their parents, they act out in manners that, you know, they see out there. So, and then, you know, they get the discipline, and then there's a communication breakdown, and it snowballs from there. So, you know, there's something that we need to look at is spending time. Time management, like you said, is very important. You know, we always say we're busy, but busy is just another word for poor time management.
Bilal, if we could just get the mic here.
But I would like to ask audience if somebody can tell me that many fathers or parents, they complain that, yeah, I spend time, I come home, but the kids, they shut themselves in their rooms. So what's the use of my presence in the home? This is another issue. Many people, many kids, they just stay inside their homes, in their rooms. So,
okay. You had a question or a comment?
Yeah.
We'll get back to this question right after this.
Well, the question was, you know, moving from lack of intervention to maybe too much intervention and concept of joint families. So maybe after we're done this discussion, maybe we can move that forward. But going back to Dr. Saab's point that when parents do want to spend time with their families, they often get the door shut on their face. I think the reason is the generation gap. A massive generation gap for the local Canadian families that are brought here, but even a bigger one when there's immigrant families involved. Language just being the tip of the iceberg, but you get into social media and you get into entertainment and you get into slang and activities. So a lot of youngsters growing up, they're hugely affected or influenced by sports, whereas our immigrants' parents might not even know what the sports are. So I think the generation gap might be a huge factor in that.
So I would sit with them sometimes when they're watching hockey. I'll just sit them and watch hockey, and if I don't even understand, I'll say, you know, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm. They are usually happy to
they will tell
their elders.
They're so excited, you know. Because sometimes I may not sit to watch cricket, but once it's you know, Flames or some important game is going on and my kids are watching, I sit with them.
Mr. Mahmood, you bring up a very good solution to this, that sometimes one side has to take that initiative to sacrifice a little bit to try to understand the other side. So something as small as the father just coming home saying, hey, let's everyone go into the car, the van, let's go out to the park, let's go out somewhere to eat. And I don't even think it has to be something, you know, something very luxurious or anything, even something small as a walk in the park. And I could see in, you know, the story that Mubashir talked about, how the child is ready to pay $20 to his dad just to spend that extra hour with him. That's pretty moving, and I think that gives a very good view of how some of the kids feel when their parents aren't there. Mudassir, did you want to add to that?
I agree with most of the comments and the opinion by the panelists. One thing that I've observed is, even though people are trying to get together around dinner table or in the living area, or they are trying to go to restaurants, there are so many distractions these days. Everybody in the family have a smartphone or have their iPads, laptops, and even in the cars, parents are in the front sitting there trying to talk to kids. They're playing on their video games or they're watching a movie. If you go to a restaurant, these days, most of the restaurants, what do you have? You're trying to talk to somebody and they're watching the TV or the hockey game. Yeah. So I think the stress should be quality time. at least 1 or 2 hours a day that you sit together with each other. No laptops, no texting, no smartphones and everything. The interesting story I can relate to is I was growing up overseas, and there used to be some power failure every day. And that kind of shuts down the electricity in the whole house. So whole family has to sit together for 1 or 2 hours and talk about different things. So that was something positive that came out of that.
One of the beauties of third world countries, no electricity, then...
So the problem is not generation gap, is technology gap, you know.
Very nice.
Technology interference and influence.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I wanted to touch on a little bit is that, and this is not just in Canada, it's worldwide, we see this happening, is that usually when kids are growing up, they come to a certain age, usually within their teenage years, there's usually a lot of difficulty in communication and relationship between parents and children. So Dr. Khan, I wanted to ask you, why do you think that is so consistent around the whole world, that kids, especially in that age group, have that difficulty with their parents? They don't communicate properly. There's a lot of arguments, disagreements, hurt feelings. So
I think this is the age, and usually most of the time I have noticed one stage, and whenever I ask the history, it is usually around grade 7 and 8 where they start having difficulty. Parents, they don't understand that this is the time when there are biological changes in the body, and they start growing up. They have psychological issues. They are looking for identity, authority, power, and the parents start lecturing them. Huge mistake. They talk to them, they lecture them for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and they think that it's working, but it doesn't work. So interesting, I developed some interest in this area and talked to many families, and then I found one really great secret. And when parents, they come to me and they seek advice in that regard, I say that this is the secret sentence or trick. Don't say more than one little sentence for it, because they are going to tell you that why I cannot go to that birthday, why I cannot go there. John's parents, they never stop him. So what's wrong? No, give me the reason, give me the reason. The moment you start giving the reason, you are in trouble, because the thing is that you will say something and they don't have logic. The teenagers, they don't use logic. That's the big problem. Okay. So it's useless to explain them because they don't want to listen. So avoid it. You just, sometimes I say that, okay, whatever the reason I don't have, but I don't think you should go. That's it. And walk away, because they love to debate about it. And what happened at the end? One of them, they start having hot arguments, and sometimes it can end up in physical fight. And so the better thing is that I told you whatever I have said, but in this, during this argument or during this phase, your parents should watch their tone. The moment if they identify that their tone is getting high, that's the red signal. The kids win, because they want, what they want is knock you down during argument, and the last weapon they have is crying, anger, slamming the door, walking away from there, and then there is a tension in the home. So just keep your tone low, talk in small sentences, and that's it. If it works, works. Otherwise, nothing will work.
We know that exactly what the doctor mentioned, that the last weapon or the last resort is crying, and you don't want to see your kid crying, you know, or angry or unhappy, because that will affect you as a father or as a mother.
Yeah.
So you have to understand them. You have to befriend them. You know, be a friend.
That's very important. I
be
think
a friend.
Yeah, if that relationship exists, then
you know, I was looking at an article. Usually in our, not in our own cultures, but in this Western culture, years ago or decades ago, the father used to be the disciplinary, or the disciplinarian, and the mother used to be the caregiver. Things have changed right now.
Yeah.
Things have changed. Now we see, you know, fathers are raising kids, and mothers are earning money.
Yeah, yeah. So. Also, we have a lot of young people in our audience. I wanted to also get their perspective as to, you know, what kind of difficulties did you feel you went through growing up and dealing with parents, and what were some of the solutions you found in trying to deal with, you know, your parents growing up here with so many disagreements? I'm sure many of you wanted to go to a friend's house and they wouldn't allow you, or school's going to a trip, and there's probably many disagreements. So if any of the audience wanted to, you know, share some of their experiences growing up and how they dealt with these issues. If we could get the mic back there.
So this is related to this, but it's a bit different, my answer, but it would answer your question, which is basically saying that in my scenario, I had disagreements with my parents many times, but they never escalated. Like, I would never, however my parents raised me, it never allowed me to disconnect from them. So, and time would come, I'd get over them, and they would not last too long. So I think that was the main thing. If you have a good relationship with your parents, and if they've raised you very well, you will not, your conflicts will, I mean, conflicts do arise, and it's natural. It's not something that we should say, oh, there should be no conflicts, but they should not escalate. I mean, if you truly love each other, you'll realize that if I do not obey them, or if we continue this dispute, you fear that, you know, you'll disconnect.
Yeah.
And for that love, you come back for it, and you say, no, I'm not going to let this break apart. So it's at the end of the day, it's truly valuing your family. So in any disagreement, if you truly value your family, it will not be an issue.
That's a very good point. You raised that there are going to be disagreements, but there's no point in letting it escalate to the point where sometimes kids are not talking to their parents and parents aren't talking to their kids. Sometimes teenagers are threatening that, you know, we're going to move out. So that's very good. It shouldn't even escalate to that. And I think if families work on, you know, what their values are, the foundation of, you know, what their families stand on, you wouldn't have those issues and problems.
So Islam has an answer to everything. Islam said to I mean, respect your elderly. And again, look at your younger ones with sympathy and rahmah and care. So if you do that, and and Islam said, like, treat your wife, okay, treat your wife with respect. I mean, if you do that, if you treat your youngers, okay, with sympathy and rahmah and care, respect your wife, as a partner, and also respect and love your parents, I mean, you got it made.
Very good points. We're coming towards the end of our program, and I wanted to ask our guest panelists for any last remarks they had about the issues we've talked about, some of the solutions, and we're hopeful that after this program, a lot of people have picked up on some of those solutions and will try their best to, you know, make their lives happier at home. So, Dr. Khan?
I would briefly give some message, this message, and take my words. These, they never, what I'm going to say, try these, they never failed. As I said already, pray for each other, number one. When there is a discussion in the family, let the other person win. You will have no harm. Honestly, you will experience this. Trust each other. Trust your kids. They just, if once you have taught them some values, they will come back to you. The last thing is, as we have already said, spend some quality time with them. And the last thing is, at some point, if you lose your temper, if you have yelled at them or you have done something really wrong, please I'm telling this messages to parents, never hesitate to admit it. Say that I'm a human being, I lost temper, don't follow my footsteps, it was wrong. I admit that. This will reduce the confusion to in their mind, and it will bring harmony.
Very good advice, Mr. Mahmood.
In addition to everything which has been said, and it's all very good, of course, we as family members all of us should take responsibility, and more responsibility goes on the parents because they're adults and they have experience in life, and they know what's right, what's wrong. So they have to be more careful when they're dealing with the teenagers, because they have less experience and they have not gone through those challenges of life. So if we, each of us, work together, I'm sure we can have a very, very good and happy family.
Well, thank you very much for having this discussion. It is really beneficial for us and for everybody. I think we have to realize that God has created us equally but differently. I think we have our different minds, different ideas, different opinions, and we will have difference in opinions. If we're all thinking the same way, that means we're not thinking. And as I said earlier, that we especially in our own cases, the multicultural and the immigrants, like we have moved from a society to a society, from a culture to a culture. Mm-hmm. So we have to take that into consideration. We have to make sure that we create a balance. Mm-hmm. We must not be rigid, mm-hmm. and we must respect others' opinions and others' thinking. Mm-hmm. So and always have a patience. Patience is a virtue.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, we've had a very interesting discussion today on the challenges that families face. Today we talked about what the ideal family is, what are some of those challenges that they face, and what those solutions are. And the hope is that from today's program, our viewers and people watching at home can take some of these ideas and solutions and help make their families a better place. Also, I wanted to thank our guest panelists today for a great discussion, and also the studio audience for interacting and giving their ideas and sharing their stories and experiences. And for those that want to watch other episodes of Real Talk, you can go on the website at the bottom of your screen, www.mta.tv/realtalk. And we hope we can join you again for another edition of Real Talk Canada. Until then, thank you very much, and Assalamu Alaikum.